Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 2 here. Bit delayed today, I'm afraid, but we're getting there. So I hope everybody is well, doing okay. And yeah, we're just waiting on Wendy. Yeah, I'm just waiting for Wendy for a minute. All right. Mhm. What's going on here? Yeah, doing it.
The joys of
Oh,
technology.
on the run.
Pardon, Steve?
Were you on the wrong one?
I was on the one that you sent me earlier. I was on the one that you sent me this morning, and it's the only one
Right.
you've
Okay.
and it's the only one you've sent me today. So I don't know
Okay.
how we've
That's all
managed.
right.
Anyway, we're here.
It's okay. Okay. Yeah, we're here. Hang for a second. Got to load this up. Yeah. Done it. Okay. Uh, Hello everybody, and okay. I tell you what, I love ABBA music. That was really, really good, wasn't it? With the ABBA music. Sorry about that delay. We were trying to get Wendy on. So now we got more and more ABBA music. But in the meantime, we got Wendy on. Yes. Hello, Wendy. How are you?
Hello, Steve. I'm good, thank you. And yourself? And
I'm
yourself?
okay, thank you.
Oh,
What
good.
you? I'm okay. Yes. What you talking about today?
Well, I was having one of those kind of discussions with myself before we started that kind of went, what will be the topic today? And the word I've just been given is compassion. and understanding in a post-COVID world. And when I say post-COVID, I mean COVID is going to be with us for a long, 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 long time now, as we're seeing another increase in cases and whatever. But what I mean is that it's about compassion for everyone that's involved. There seems to have been so much division created by this illness that my notion today was to talk about how those divisions can be healed. It is the kind of thing whereby I've just had a message from a colleague of mine, and she is in the very strong, not been vaccinated, never worn a mask, doesn't buy into the COVID experience. She's young, she's fit, she's an alternative practitioner, and she eats nourishing meals, etc., etc., etc. Now, to be quite honest, she wouldn't know whether she'd had it or not because she's never been tested to find out. So on that basis, when there have been times when she's been ill, she may or she may not have had it. What I've noticed, though, is that then someone else comments, kind of goes, that someone in our group that were part of a fitness group, and someone within the group had said that they'd gone abroad and that they'd been vaccinated. And it was kind of, well, what have you been vaccinated for? And it's this very strong anti-vaccination feeling that then kind of ends up pushing people apart. And I think that that's one of the biggest tragedies in many ways to come out from the COVID scenario. Now, just as an example, in my family, when I stayed with my daughter through the first lockdown, and her father is in one of the very high risk groups, as one of my sisters are, and Sarah chose to have the vaccine because she was worried about the risk of infection for her father. Now, she's young. It was just at the time when AstraZeneca was coming out with the danger of the blood clots and the effect that it had on the younger people. And so she's one of those younger people. And because I come from a philosophy of we're in control of our bodies, there is a belief within my philosophy that goes, whatever goes in, metaphysically, it doesn't have to come out actually. Metaphysically, I can negate it, heal it, transform it, transmute it, do whatever it needs to for it to be able to be something that is efficient for my body. And today I'm talking about things that are kind of strange, and it's not, and I am not, and I'm stressing here that I am not. And have had every other vaccine in my life. I've never had the flu vaccine because I've never believed in it, because it's kind of which strain is it? And very much now, it's very much the same where COVID's concerned, that it's changing its makeup so quickly each time that we've just got to accept that it's out there and part of it. I mean, out of flu viruses, I think, and please don't quote me on the numbers, but between 30 to 40% of flu viruses are coronaviruses anyway. The same goes for cold, that some of those are coronaviruses anyway. So I kind of go, and we've never been able to make a proper and full vaccine against them. Now, the vaccine's got us through a certain phase within this particular epidemic that is now, what do we call it now? Endemic within society. And I kind of go, I'm not convinced, other than for those in the very high risk sections, that we need them anymore, because of the very reasoning that it's still an experimental drug. It is still an emergency authorization. And we won't actually know the results of the trials, ironically, until the end of next year. So it's been in use 3 years before we know the end of the trials.
Anyway, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you carry on. All right?
Oh, thank you. So I'll carry on as I'm talking to you, Steve, just because it gives me, I'm talking to everybody, but it says I'm explaining things. So we're not going to know the end of those trials. Now, that's not to say that the results are going to be good, bad, or indifferent. We don't know. And that's the point. We do not know. Now, for those of us, but what was interesting was when my daughter chose to have her vaccine, she said to me, "Mother, stop worrying, because my blood is not going to clot." Now, I know that my daughter is an amazing manifester, and she had the vaccine, and she didn't even have, I think she took paracetamol for headache that night, and that was it done. So that's as much of the side effects that she'd had. I know of others who have had further side effects. But what's been interesting is, as a kind of, Sarah is one group that is the vaccinated, and she's been vaccinated twice, and me as an unvaccinated, and both of us living literally this close hand in blush. I see her at least 5 days a week. I see her and the grandchildren at least 5 days a week because I'm involved in the school run. I see them. I stay over at least. I was staying over throughout the lockdown, and then throughout and then after the lockdown when it stopped, and when I was moving, I slept there twice a week up until getting my own place to live after my house had sold, which was in October. Since then, I still occasionally stay over, but nowhere near as often. But I'm still seeing everybody that frequently. Now, during that time, just prior to Christmas, Sarah got the symptoms first, and obviously because we were going for, we were spending Christmas together, and again because of her dad, and because she worries about her dad, and because her dad's in one of the high risk groups, she chose that. She tested when she got symptoms. She tested, and she came out positive. And I started kind of a week later, and I got positive, and so we both ended up being negative by Christmas. But the point is that at that point, I could say that I have this now. I don't know I find it, because I am an ex-nurse, I have a very strong medical model bias, which isn't always healthy for me as an alternative practitioner. And it doesn't always align with what is going off in the way that I think. So it's been a kind of incongruent life I've lived in working in the health service whilst being an alternative health practitioner. So my thoughts have changed. My experience has changed over the time. I am still one of the healthiest people that I know for my age. And it's interesting when we were talking, when I've been talking with Steve, it is just that, and we were joking about me finding a partner. The fact is that I have been on a couple of dating sites, and as I've met and I've gone out on these, and then I find that when I date men who are of my age, and I tend to find that a lot of them have got physical ailments that I personally don't have. So I have to put it out there, and I'm putting it out there to the universe now, that anybody who comes into my life that I want to spend the rest of my life with, I'd like them to start off at least being as fit as I am. It's not saying that they won't be at some level, but I'd like them to start off at being the same level of fitness as I am, so that we can at least walk down the street together, or we can walk around a store together without getting out of breath or whatever, and the rest that goes with it. So my mind just went somewhere totally different than when you laughed, Steve, but we'll leave it at that one. So then when so where Sarah and I are concerned, so she got it first, then I got it. Then I've just been to Italy, and I was tested before I went because it's part and parcel of the procedure, especially as because I'm unvaccinated. Went to Italy, had a lovely time, came back on the plane. Within a week, I started with symptoms. Now, it was nothing like the symptoms that I experienced the first time round. In that the first time round, I didn't get a fever. This time I did. The first time round, I got a cough. This time I didn't. It was just literally felt like flu, in that I was off my feet, tired, not particularly achy, but did have that, that cold shiveriness that goes with a fever, that you get hot, then you get cold, then you get hot, then you get cold. So I had that experience. And then after 48 hours of that, where I literally did stay in bed for nearly 2 days, and then I was back to normal. And then Sarah got the symptoms, and Sarah, being Sarah, tested. And when she tested, it was positive. So we kind of went, oh, well, you must have had it, Mum. And I kind of go, well, I might have. I don't know. I didn't test. However, it's kind of on the timing and everything goes that it's a new type that's coming. It's whatever. So we've both had that. But interestingly, each time we've both had it about the same. She's been vaccinated. I've not been vaccinated. What I do, and that I do in terms of keeping me fit fit and healthy is not so much now because I go out and get the sunshine instead. But I take my vitamin D, I take my magnesium, and I take supplements that reduce the I've forgotten the name of it, free radicals, whatever, that are in your blood. So other than that, Sarah and I are the same, and the illnesses that we've experienced have been the same. And it's not been a threat to either of us, even though officially, and she says this with great reluctance, I'm in a higher risk group due to my age, in that I am over 60. So it means that I'm in that, but I don't think of myself as that. So my body doesn't respond as that. And therefore, no, it just doesn't have that effect. But why I'm saying this is it's interesting for it. There's now getting to be, so there's a divide between people that have had the vaccine and people that haven't. People that have a very strong belief in the dangers of COVID and people that don't. Now, as an alternative health practitioner, I have a belief that illness serves a purpose, and that when we become ill, there is usually an underlying mental stroke, psychological stroke, spiritual reason behind the illness. And for different illnesses, there are books that are written on it that goes metaphysical causes of illness. Louise Hayes was one of the first ones with her little blue book and causes of illness, and she wrote lots of affirmations for how to overcome them. And so there's lots of things out there that go, what different illnesses have different purposes. And I do believe that I explained to you the other week about me curing my own hay fever. So when we get these particular illnesses, I kind of go, what is it? What's happening? So rather than, but what I do think is so very, very important is for each of us to have, I always remember my teacher that says she doesn't recommend you standing at the bottom of the hospital bed and going, you created this illness. Whether we did or whether we didn't, we've not done it consciously. And because we haven't done it consciously, it's not a thing about blame, because this is one of the biggies where it comes in with metaphysical illness, that people end up feeling as though there's a blame that goes with it. It isn't. It is the mind and the body's way in cahoots together to create and give you the outcome that you particularly want. Now, it's fascinating in that it's just fascinating as you work your way through different family events and different things that happen for different people for why a particular illness comes along. And I've explained some more of this actually in my book, because one of the things that I don't tend to do with getting ill, but what I do is I then worry and get the anxiety about when my sisters get ill. But back to the compassion for everybody. So my comments for COVID and the life that we're living at this moment and post-COVID, how to move forward. And this is one of the things that I'm going to be covering when we come to the conference in September. Steve says it's like, what's next? What does the future hold? Where's to the future? How can we manage to take our control, our spiritual direction, our internal guidance system, and how can we take this control back, given that, well, part of it, given how much the government's tried to take away from us. But first and foremost, I think, is the gift of compassion on both sides, of an understanding of that each person's view of the world is absolutely and utterly unique. So your perception of the world is very different to my perception of the world. And this is one of the things that we're taught in the NLP world. Everybody lives in their own unique map of the world. We experience the world via our senses. If we took every single detail into our consciousness, our brain would be literally overloaded. We wouldn't be able to, we would not be able to deal, especially if you see clutter in my house, I would not be able, I struggle as it is to cope with what I see, but the effect it would have of the overloading of the brain. So if you took in every single scent, every single vision, every single sound, everything, and all at once. So this is kind of thing sometimes with people that are neurodivergent, that they do take it in, and that's why they can't cope with the extra noises, because we have a filtering system that blocks it out. But that filtering system is filtered via our beliefs, via our conditioning, via our genetics, via our environment, so via the way that we've grown up, via the communities that we live in. So all of these things have an impact, and they have a different impact. I mean, think back, how many times have you known that you've been to a party and somebody tells a story about what happened at that party, and you think, no, it didn't happen like that. That's because, yes, you were both at the same party, but your perception of what was going off is different. And I think it's time that we all kind of stepped up. We call it taking a meta position where NLP is concerned, that instead of being at ground level and all comparing to each other about this is what happens here, this is what happens there, is that we step up and take an overall picture that brings us all together, because we are all human beings. We are all one at source. We all connect, and we've all come from the same place. Now, these are my beliefs. You don't have to take them on, but these are my beliefs. So we all come from the same place. We all go back to the same place. We are one at source, whether you call that source God, whether you call that source the universe. It doesn't matter what title you give it, whether you call it the unified field, whether you call it whatever you call it, we are all one at source. And as we are all one, however we judge another person is how either we judge ourselves or we will be judged ourselves by others. So if you find, so this is where I come back to the compassion. This is where I come back to the recognition that we all have different perspectives. And a friend of mine had a beautiful connotation as a spiritual thing, and it is about when we meet someone from very different worlds. So if you get on well with someone, you will find that if you look at my hands, the worlds overlap to a great extent, and you understand. So you've got more of an insight into that person's thoughts, beliefs, patterns. Meeting strangers, we meet and we just touch at certain points. And I think one of the most honouring things that we can do for other human beings is that we meet them at some point where those worlds meet, whether it's in just such a tiny portion, because once we meet at that point, I mean, another friend of mine calls meet them at their bus stop. It's like not going against them, not sharing your disparate beliefs, disparate beliefs, so that you begin from that point of connection. You begin from that point of sharedness, and then they can express their views and you can express yours. And there is no requirement to agree other than to recognize that that other person is a human being with the rights to disagree with you. And I find it fascinating because, again, and it's about what is a wise and what is an unwise decision, but it is, excuse me, it is even stated in law under the Mental Capacity Act, that we have the right as adults to make, as adults with capacity, that we have the right to make unwise decisions. So just because we don't agree with someone else's decision does not mean that they don't have that right to make that decision. And they will either learn from it, or they may repeat the same mistake, or you may prove to be wrong and it may be the perfect decision for them, because what we don't know is what is destined for them. We've got enough on knowing what's destined for us. And I think it's fascinating how many of us, and I'm taking you back now to a lady that is called Byron Katie, who has a lovely book, who has a lovely philosophy, and she calls it the work for challenging your thoughts. If you're not joyous and happy and settled with where you are, and if you're in struggle of any kind, it is because of your thoughts. That's her version. So she challenges it. But what she also does is, if you're experiencing struggle, if you're experiencing disagreement, there's 3 questions to ask first. And it is a little bit like, God, give me the strength to know what I can change, what I can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference. This one is, there's 3 types of business. There's your business, there's my business, and there's God's business. And so many of us spend our time wanting to interfere, make judgment on, comment on other people's business, that we're that busy dealing in their business, that we're not busy sorting out our own business. And then there is the business that is God's, that we have no power over, not any one of us, not anything of us. That is so it's we're not going to change. We're not able to change that. And I think that that is a lovely way of helping people to define boundaries. So I confess, I am confessing my sins. I confess to having spent a fair bit of my life in other people's business, thinking that I knew what was better for them. And in actual fact, the lesson that I have been taught very strongly, and especially throughout the COVID scenario, is that I do not know what is best for anyone. And it isn't my business whether, because the thing is, whichever situation you're in where you're talking about the vaccine versus the not vaccine, is you have to weigh it up, the vaccine versus the risk of COVID. Now, I know, having had COVID twice, I think I've had it twice, possibly had it twice, that the risk is not, I choose not to take the risk of the vaccine, of an experimental vaccine, because it does not have, the impact of COVID for myself is minimal. Now, if I was in my younger sister's situation where she has an autoimmune condition, I would probably be thinking very differently. I'm not, because my thoughts are the ones that keep this body. My thoughts and my energy are what keep this body fit. Her thoughts and her energy are what helped to create the autoimmune condition in the first place, which then means that she's in a position. So her beliefs are incredibly different to mine. It doesn't mean I love her any less. It doesn't mean that I don't want to see her. It doesn't mean that I totally disagree with what she's doing for herself, because she is an autonomous being that has the right to do whatever she chooses for her well-being. It's not my job. And and interestingly, it's part and parcel of what I've written about in my book, because me learning the lesson that her health is not my business was one of the big ones as far as my anxiety states go, because it then comes down to what's her business is her business, and how she responds and how she deals with her illness, and the overall final result of that may not even be, I don't even believe it's in her hands, it's in God's hands. So it's not for me to blame, to say she should, to say she shouldn't, to say she must, to say she should, to say. The only thing I request is that same respect back to me that goes, I have the right not to take it. I have the right not to wear the mask. If you want to wear the mask, if you want to take the vaccine, you are perfectly entitled to do so. And we all live with the consequences of our decisions. And the consequences of our decisions are often based on not the actual decision that we've made, but the beliefs and the unconscious patterns that we run, that are at the back of those, beliefs, and that are at the back of those decisions that we make. So I don't know if you're still there, Steve, but that brings me up to my 2:30. So really, it's just about compassion. There is a faction, I believe, in the world that wants to divide and conquer us. And that's why I say it's time for all of us as human beings to unite, to love, to care, and to respect. And that's my comments. Steve, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
You were there, and then
Yeah,
you right. So that brings me to the end of my thoughts for today on compassion.
yeah,
Oh, Steve.
yeah. You kind of like mentioned a couple of things where about nosing into people's business and everything,
Yeah,
and you know that's what people do quite a bit. You know what I mean? That's what they do. When I had all that, when I was doing all the media stuff and being on television, people were going into my business all the time, and and saying things. So what they did was they kind of like, when I told them that, they just buggered off, and I didn't see them for a while. Then when I started getting my life together again and started doing all the good things,
yeah,
they come back and they started like apologizing and everything. You know what I mean? And wanted to
mhm,
be my friend and whatever. But
yeah,
the trouble is, though, you know, the trouble is, no one should be, we've got family, friends, and everything, everybody out there, but no one should be, diving into our business. Our business is private. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's not. I think it's not only the fact that they want to know about your business, but they also then choose to make the judgments about
Yeah,
your business.
yeah,
And,
that's what they did. Yeah, yeah.
and one of the things that I kind of go as far as the spiritual counselling goes is if you feel offended by somebody judging you, look at where you are either judging others or judging yourself. And if you can ease off on the judgment of others and the judgment of yourself, you'll find that automatically the world around you will stop judging you as much.
Well, I don't do that no more. I don't because I haven't got the right to do it. When I went away and tried to get my help what I wanted, and I'm much better now. I don't kind of like get involved. I don't get involved with the media no more. I don't do anything like that no more. I've been offered to do a few jobs yet with the media, but I'm not. And the trouble is, I don't want to get involved with it. You know what I mean?
I have to say that where the mainstream media is concerned, the least you say to them, the better.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I do believe that there is a party line by the main media owners. So when you think about, what's his name that owns Sun and all others, and News at World, and
Murdoch,
no.
Murdoch.
So you've got a very small group of people with a lot of power who direct that conversation. And even if they come kind of chatting nicely to you, then you have the conversation and then they misrepresent it. So I personally think that people like yourself that are on these podcasts, people that are on YouTube that run their own channels, that are independent, are much more likely to give you accurate representations of people uh, and the representations of people's opinions than you are going to get in the mainstream media. And I mean, the whole of the mainstream media has gone so woke at the moment, it's beyond belief.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. I was doing a show. Yes, no. When was it? Yeah, yeah. Yesterday, Monday night, and I was doing it with Mark Memphis. And on a Monday night, it's really like from 8:30 onwards, it's bonkers. You know what I mean? We
Yeah,
could talk about anything, and we do take a mick out of a few people, and now and again we make prank calls to people who we know. Bit of fun.
yeah.
And I said something, and all of a sudden, I know the media always watches because they're ready to step out on me, and it was like, what was it? Oh, I heard. I thought you were all for that subject, but I guess you're not now. That was from a certain like reporter guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I said to him, if you're sitting around all night, kind of like watching me doing things, I feel so sad for you, mate. I
Mm-hmm.
really do. There's a lot of other people out there suffering, and you can start writing stuff about them on there,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden he flicked off. But yeah, I think the trouble is with anything these days is, I think one, we shouldn't judge anybody.
I mean,
Keep
it's
out
easier
people.
said than done.
What?
Easier said than done because we're all full of our own conditioning from the past and what we'd been taught when we were younger. So we do judge against that because it's the question of discernment. And I think there's a different, and it's kind of differentiating between discernment and judgment. So if I discern that somebody doesn't share the same values as myself, then I'm not devaluing that person, but then I choose not to mix with them
Right.
because they may be good for me. You
How
understand what I'm
about if? How do you deal with gossip? So say like, if somebody, I don't know, if somebody kind of like, if you were in a group, say, of people, and something said about somebody, you know, do you firstly believe them, or secondly, do you kind of like go to the person who they're talking about and say, hey, what's happened here, and find out the truth? or do you just kind of like go along with the gossip?
I don't tend to go along with gossip. I'm one of the world's worst gossips because people tell me things and then I forget, and so I don't tend to share gossip unless it's about
Mm.
me, because then I'll go, oh, I've just seen my ex-husband and this happened and that type of
Yeah,
statement. But I don't tend. I mean, and especially work-wise and work colleagues-wise, and especially because of the job that I was in when I was the manager, I got to know a lot about my members of staff that were private and confidential to them. So it's not for me to share that. Now, if they choose to go out and share it for themselves, that's their choice. Do you know what I mean
mm.
with the conversation? Because if it's about themselves, then it's their business, not mine.
Mm.
Whereas, so but gossip can, I mean, you've only got to have played Chinese whispers to know that what you're hearing, if it's not firsthand from the person that it happened to, then there's going to be distortions and deletions in it, that it's not going to be accurate. No matter how much you try, it is not going to be accurate because you've done it via your own filters, via your own beliefs. So I don't tend to join in gossip. If it's really bad gossip, I do kind of, it depends on the situation, and this is like a recognition of the social power of a group. That if they're all at it, I'm not likely to kind of, well, now no, that's gossip more so than opinion. If it's gossip that's malignant towards someone else, it's kind of thing. I'd say, do you think that's fair, or do they know? Would you want them to hear you saying that? Because then that is a recognition of, and how do you think they'd feel if they knew that you were saying that? Because it always does get back. When people are talking about you, it does eventually get back. But that's the other thing is when you hear that what people have said, it's also as good to take that with a big, big dose of salt, because again, via Chinese whispers, there's 1,001 distortions, deletions, and inaccuracies that'll have gone before it's come back to you and go
Yeah,
back to
yeah,
source. So if they're telling you, if they're telling you that somebody said something about you, I would recommend you going to the source and saying, can I just confirm? I've heard this story. I'm not sure whether it's true. Can we talk about it?
yeah, yeah,
And the person spreading the gossip, they have to be careful because it comes back to them. Because
yeah,
one of the things is, and the other thing is that I also go, if somebody is gossiping to me, I tell them I am very much more aware to share nothing that I don't want other people to know about myself.
yeah, yeah,
I am an
yeah,
incredibly private person. I'm more than willing to sit here and to share things and to talk, but as actual my own personal decisions, etc., I am incredibly private. And so I don't share my decisions. I don't share my reasons for my decisions. I don't share what I'm doing, except with a
well,
very
yeah.
small group of people.
Well, you have the right to do that, isn't you? Really,
Yeah,
you have the right to do that. But you know, it's kind of like it's a sad world, and a lot of people, I was speaking to somebody last night, and they were saying to me, uh, what was it? 40 people in their town actually committed suicide in 1 week over gossip.
yeah. Oh yeah,
I
it can
can't believe it. I can't believe that.
huge damage. And I think, and especially, I mean, it's like when you think about bullying in school, it used to be located to just the school or to your class. Whereas now, if you start thinking about the notion that what can go off on social media, there is a great, as part and parcel of our program that we ran, of How to Love Yourself Well. One of the things that we did, it was my twin sister that did it, and she checked out the research. And in actual fact, there's research that shows people are far, far more happy being off social media than the ones that are using it, because they worry about what people think to them. They worry about whatever. You get so many arguments on it. It's just
Yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
and it's like, and you get people who feel as though they have the right to be critical and condemnatory when they don't even know you and they don't know the perspective that you're coming from, and it's like I've said, they don't respect a person's right to their own opinion.
yeah. I know. I know.
But that is, the world in which we live in, and it's a world where it increases anxiety no end, and it's a world whereby that's why I'm writing my book.
Are you getting on with that? How are you getting on?
It's at the editors at the moment, so I'm waiting to get the feedback from the editor to make any amendments that are needed. I'm in the process of designing the cover. I'd be kind of curious from anybody if they've got any ideas about what me and my worry monster looks like on the front page of a book. I have got an idea for what I want it to look like. It's like me just in the corner looking up and then seeing this big monster looking at me that's got worry written over its forehead or whatever.
Well, just take a photo of your ex-husband.
I don't have that feeling. It was, talking that, it was interesting that because we've had very little communication since we split up. But I walked into the shop to buy a bottle of wine because I was going to my sister's for a meal and she was cooking. So I was taking the wine. And he stood in queue in front of me and automatically, because I've seen somebody that I know, I went, oh, hi. And he just ignored me. So that's lie.
Did he?
But, yeah, he just ignored me. But the beauty is, I didn't mind. My heart wasn't racing, my hands weren't sweating, I wasn't palpitating. There was no anxiety that went with that meeting, which is a good indication that I've resolved a lot of the stuff from separating.
Right. Okay. Right. Thank you very much for joining me once again. If you want to contact Wendy, please do contact her. How can they contact you, Wendy?
Right, you can find me as Wendy Elliot on Facebook and on Messenger. So it's ELIOT. I wonder if we ought to change my name on here for that so that it all kind of ties in.
Yes.
And then people will be able to get hold of me a lot easier.
Yeah, we will do that.
Yes, so if you change it. It's Elliot as in T.S. Eliot, because I chose the name originally because I wanted to be a writer. So it's all coming together. Change my name back, start writing my book.
Right. Okay. Right. So please do, and look out for Wendy's book. I'm sure, we're probably. Would that be done before the conference, or?
I'm hoping so. We've got a launch date in September, but I'm hoping to have some copies of my own to fetch with me at the conference.
Right. Okay. Okay. Brilliant.
And as we get closer to it, I'll be giving you more details, and I'll run a competition for for kind of the first 5 books that I'll then give away for whatever. I'll think of a competition before then for us to be able to do.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But thank you. It's been a joy once again. And if there's and could you just ask your viewers what they'd like me to talk about next week?
Yeah, sure. So, if any topics that you want Wendy to talk about next week, please,
spirituality, please, health.
Yeah. Please email me, and I will let Wendy know as soon as possible. Don't forget, guys, we've got more people later on. We have got the wonderful. Not the wonderful. Well, they are wonderful in my eyes. I can't remember the names, but we have got more people later on. But they're foreign. I can't remember what their name is. But there you go. Yeah. But anyway, they're not foreign. But oh god. Right, Wendy, I've got
names that you can't pronounce.
Yes, Panmana Gorayandi. I think so.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, whatever. Anyway.
Panther, all sorts, and that's what I thought was a straightforward name. So I do feel sorry for people that have got an unusual name.
You haven't got a wig that you can borrow us, have you?
A what? A wig?
Yeah.
I don't have a wig, no.
No?
No.
Right.
Only this one. And it's firmly attached.
Yeah. You haven't got no grey hair, have you?
Oh, I have.
Have you?
Yeah, very. Very. Right. The photo that it's practically white at the roots, but I just keep I keep the bottle at the hand ready and get it done. It's so funny when my little granddaughter's brushing my hair. You know how kids love to brush your hair.
Yeah.
Are these white bits, Grandma? I think, oh, it's about time I got bottle out now then. When she said it.
All right then, Wendy. Thank you very much. Thank you
Right,
for
you
that.
take care.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.